Sure, but two comments about oversight. The first is I just want to associate myself with Senator Johnson's remarks about the need to make sure that we're conducting oversight and that the statute's actually being followed and the agencies are appropriately responding to us. On a similar point, I want to mention an amendment that I had intended to offer today if the underlying bill had been offered related to ICE. And I want to thank the chairman for working with me on this. I brought this up in the hearing for Mr. Gonzalez and again with Secretary Mayorkas. ICE is reporting to members of this committee and to me that they are being discouraged from actively pursuing arrests in the interior of this country, and in particular that DHS has set up a new pre-clearance system called the Arrest Authorization Request Tool that requires ICE officers to submit documentation before they make an arrest, to get approval from superiors before they make an arrest. And ICE officers have told me, and I know other members of this committee, that this is seriously hampering their efforts. I think it is absolutely vital. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, we can see that in the number of arrests, down to 2,500 per month in the early months of this administration compared to 10,000 in previous months. The ICE union is strongly asking for transparency to find out how many times an ICE officer has asked to make an arrest, and that request has been denied under this new guidance issued by the administration and under the new system, the pre-clearance system that is set up. Now, Secretary Mayorkas, when I asked him about this, acted as if he didn't know anything about it. When I asked about specific instances that, by the way, were brought to me and to Senator Langford and others on this committee by ICE, he said he didn't know anything about it. I think this committee needs to find out how many times ICE officers have asked to make arrests and they have been denied by their leadership pursuant to these guidelines in this new system. Now, I've discussed this with the chairman. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for working with me on this. I know that we're trying to get answers here. I understand that DHS does not want to give us this information. They've used a lot of excuses. Unfortunately, DHS has a history of using excuses to this committee, and it spans administrations. We've seen it from the previous administration, too. But I just want to highlight this issue. I promised the leadership of ICE that I would raise this. I'm deadly serious about it. It is vital to them that we get answers about this. Their leadership is asking for it. Their membership is asking for it. I think it's a critical part of the work of this oversight committee. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for working with me on this. I hope we can find some way to get this information so that we can conduct oversight and figure out what the heck is going on at ICE. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sinema.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about this issue for a moment briefly because while I don't disagree with Senator Hawley's concern about the issue, I do want to be clear that this was a hostile amendment to a very bipartisan bill, the Shadow Wolves bill, and it's an amendment that is unrelated to the substance of my legislation. So while I also want to work with the chairman and Senator Hawley to find resolution and get these answers, I do want to note that I am disappointed that there was an attempt to add a hostile amendment to my bill without speaking with me or asking me about it. I'm known as someone who wants to work very closely with others to find bipartisan agreements. And I am unfortunately very disappointed that my bill is not moving forward today because of this attempt to attach an unrelated issue. I will continue to work together to get these answers, but I am disappointed about this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm surprised to hear that, Senator Sinema, because my staff and your staff have discussed this frequently. And I'm happy to take a vote on the amendment. My understanding is you didn't want to vote on this amendment, so therefore you withdrew your bill. I'm happy to have a vote on this amendment today. But I made a commitment to the men and women of ICE that I would stand up for them, and I'm going to keep that commitment. And I'm happy to work with you, and we have been working with you. So I don't know if you were looped into those conversations or perhaps not. All I can say is my staff has attempted to work with you and the chairman, and I'm happy to continue doing so. But I think this is an important part of our oversight commitment, and I made a commitment to the men and women of ICE, and I'm going to keep it.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Senator Sinema.
I share that commitment to the men and women of ICE, and as you know, many of the men and women of ICE live and work in my state. So this is a relationship that we have that is close and that is based on trust. I want to find a solution. I am disappointed that we're moving forward today without resolution on this issue, which prevents my bill, which is a bipartisan bill, from moving forward. So while I remain committed to solving this problem, I do want to reiterate that this was an amendment that didn't need to be attached to my bill. It can be a separate piece of legislation. I'd be more than happy to work with you. I will continue to work to solve this problem. But I was disappointed at an attempt to address a separate issue on a very bipartisan bill concerning our shadow wolves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.